Absolutely, Asha. Morning to all our viewers as well. Just taking a look at what the global handover has been, a good move coming in across the board. We've spoken about the kind of jump we've seen. Dow has topped 53,000 for the first time. The uptick in nasdaq was driven by a resurgence seen in some of the semiconductor names. You had Western Digital, Advanced Micro Devices, both of them were up rather 6.5 to 7%. You had Dell that jumped 4% after President Donald Trump. He in fact spoke about that and recommended that stock and said that the Dell donation to the Trump campaign will be paid back to the shareholders in form of good returns. So you had Dell that did well. On the flip side, you had Microsoft under pressure after announcing 4,800 job cuts. So that is the story when it comes to the US market. Shifting focus then to the European markets, very mixed day of trade coming in from Europe, because while the stock 600 itself was lower by 3/10, you've seen that pressure rub off on FTSE and CAC as well. DAX has done pretty okay for itself. In fact, DAX has been absolutely flat overnight, so that's the kind of move that we're getting from European markets as well. Taking a look at how Asia has opened up, once again very mixed this morning. You've got pressure on the Nikkei, another 1.5% trim off coming in, and now even below 69,000 is where Nikkei is. Hang Seng flattish moves this morning, 0.1% higher. Shanghai continues to be under pressure, a 1% cut coming in over there, and Australia has also opened very flat for itself. While we're speaking of Asia, let's talk about Samsung's earnings. Robust earnings coming in, and that is going to affect Kospi, but nonetheless Kospi has been under pressure since open, and as has been the case with the stock of Samsung, because you've seen a cut of about 5% on that stock ever since the stock has opened, despite the profit being at a record high for them. The second quarter operating profit came in at 89.4 trillion tons, which roughly translates to $58.4 billion compared to 57.2 trillion tons in the previous period. The operating profit from the same period was also 4.7 trillion won. So you've seen an uptick over there, but nonetheless there has been pressure on the stock since open. Let's shift focus, talk about commodities then. We've seen a little bit of an uptick coming in on your oil indices, 1% higher for WTI and Brent. Brent, however, still continues to be under 73, and WTI still nominally continues to be under 70. So that is something that we are going to be watching out for. What's very interesting is the move that we've seen in precious metals overnight, because we did see a spike of about 1 to 2.5% both on gold and silver, which then eventually cooled off. Gold is under pressure by 3/10 right now, but above the 4,150 mark. For silver also, it's a 0.5% cut, and near $62 is where silver is. So that sums up the global equities and commodities that we've been tracking. Just taking you through some of the comments. We've obviously heard a bunch of comments from Donald Trump, but in addition to that, he's saying that the short sellers in the US market have been wiped out. Their talks with Venezuela going on well, equally well with Iran. Once again, he has reiterated that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. They're going to be talking about the Russia-Ukraine war at the NATO meeting later today. So that is also something that we are going to be watching out for. Shifting focus to Fed commentary, Fed's Christopher Waller says the Fed continues to face a difficult trade-off between inflation risk and risk to employment. But he also says that the Fed will not keep rates down in the purpose of helping the US government finance its deficit. Risks have been flipped around, labor markets seem stabilized, and inflation has been taking off, which should change the way one looks at policy, is the word coming in from Christopher Waller. And lastly, we also have some word coming in from the ECB, that's European Central Bank Governing Council member. Pierre Wunsch says that it seems that the Iran shock has disappeared, and they haven't seen as many second-order effects that they had expected to see earlier. So at least some positive commentary on that front. But yes, that's a handover of all the global equities, commodities, and comments that we've been tracking overnight.